What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name's Kyle. In this video, we're going to be going over my 2023 Dynasty rookie rankings. We're just going to be looking purely at the rookies in this draft. It's April 4th. We have the NFL draft coming up in about 3 weeks. Super exciting time. And it's kind of like a dead zone time for the NFL. There's really no free agency news. The first couple waves of free agency are finally gone, and now we just have to look at mock drafts and speculations and rumors and trades. You also have Lamar Jackson and Aaron Rodgers out there, kind of seeing what they're going to do. But either way, I think it's a very interesting time to start putting out dynasty rankings. If you guys do play dynasty football or dynasty fantasy football, you know that the NFL draft happens, and then if most leagues either draft right away after that, or you're maybe not drafting till summer. But this draft or this video is here to help you guys kind of just begin to salivate and think about who you might be drafting in your upcoming rookie draft. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to share my screen. Let's go ahead and get that shared there. So we have the rankings. I'm going to actually put a link in the description, so if you guys want to check it out. But these are I updated these this morning, 4/23. And before I begin, I just want to put, it almost seems silly to me to be doing this at this point, but it's all speculation. And for me, one of the biggest things that's going to determine a lot of where I rank these upcoming rookies is who do they get drafted to? What teams are they landing on? What offenses? What's their draft capital? I mean, a running back taken in the second round that we don't expect to be taken until the fourth round, his value is going to go up. So I just want to say, before we get into the video, this is all just for fun. So we'll get into it here. These are my standard 1 QB rankings. We'll look at the top 12 or so. And what I did here is, you can see I put their position, RB1, wide receiver 1, all the way down. And then I have their draft projection here, which I have pulled from one of my favorite sites to just kind of do research on. It's NFL Mock Draft Database. I like to click on the consensus big boards, and then I've been logging these quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end rankings for the last couple months here. So I pull most of my rankings and numbers for that. So CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, all these guys, I take their 1, 2, 4, 9, all these numbers here, and I input them in to that draft projection column. So, but man, if you're drafting and you're up to pick on the 101, if you don't need a quarterback, or if you're in a super flex, I think you could take a quarterback here. But either way, the most productive player this year in this draft is going to be Bijan Robinson. Now, I don't know where he's going to be drafted. I've seen him as high as 8 to the Falcons. I don't think that's a legit probability, but you can see here his ADP is starting to level off at about the 10th overall pick. What I like about Mock Draft Database here is you can click into their name and kind of see where they've been being mocked. Like Walter Football just put on a mock today with the Lions taking Bijan. You got the Falcons, the Cardinals. I actually hadn't thought about that, but there's a potential rumor where the Titans trade up to number 3 with the Arizona Cardinals. And the Cardinals, man, they got James Conner there, which is nice. I think Conner's only got 1 year left on his deal, but that's something interesting to think about. You also have Bijan sometimes falling as low as the Cowboys. If he lands the Cowboys, oh my goodness, you got the new Ezekiel Elliott. And again, I like Tony Pollard a lot, but the dude's coming off a pretty serious injury. He's going to be healing. He might not even be ready for training camp come July. There's the Eagles at 10. I think the Eagles makes a lot of sense. As I was, and before I get into some of these things, I just want to show you guys. I was updating my my team. If you go to the content tab on the Fantasy Fellowship and hit the team depth charts, I was updating these before we get to the NFL draft. And as I updated Philadelphia, they got Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, Rashad Penny. I think drafting Bijan Robinson at 10 makes a ton of sense here and could be a lot of fun for the Eagles. But either way, Bijan Robinson is the 101 in most rookie drafts this upcoming season here. And then after that, you get some speculation. I think if you're in a super flex league, you're looking at the quarterbacks. If not, I think you're going with Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's probably got the best overall kind of bulletproof game coming into this draft class. Ohio State's been a wide receiver factory the last handful, maybe the last decade or so. They've just been pumping out tons of really, really good wide receivers. And Jackson Smith-Njigba is the next among those. He's going to be probably going in the teens here. You see him going as high as 12 to the Texans sometimes. Let's see here. Let me click on Smith-Njigba. Sometimes 12 to the Texans, 14 to the Panthers, as low as 20 to the Seahawks. Green Bay's a popular one. The Patriots, the Lions. It looks like he's not going to get outside the top 20. So we love his draft capital. We love his all-around capability for his game. Amazing route runner. A guy that can get open in space. He can go deep. He's one of the few receivers in this draft class that can do it all. So if you can't get Bijan Robinson, and if you don't need a quarterback, Jackson Smith and the Jigba is your guy. I think you're going to be extremely satisfied with him as right away. He's a guy that I'm going to plug in right away. I think if you play best ball in draft, right now he's being drafted like in the 5th or 6th round. So I love JSN. And then you get to the quarterbacks. I think CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, these guys, based on your preferences, they can go either way. But for the most part, it looks like CJ Stroud is going to be a Carolina Panther. And then after that, at number 2, it looks like Bryce Young is the lead favorite for the Houston Texans. So both fun landing spots. I think CJ Stroud in Carolina, they've done a good job adding some veteran weapons for him. They've signed Miles Sanders, they've signed Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Hayden Hurst. They've built him a good little nucleus to get his rookie season kind of off the ground. So I like CJ Stroud the most for the quarterbacks. Bryce Young, if he does go to the Texans, and hey man, like what if they draft Bryce Young and then they get Smith and Jigba at 12? I think that could be kind of fun too. But either way, I think the opportunity for the Texans and their rookie quarterback could be a lot of fun, and it's probably Bryce Young. So those are my top 4. After that, I do have, this is where we can kind of get into preferences and questions and stuff. But a lot of people really like Quentin Johnston from TCU. I like him a lot. He's a bigger receiver. He's really good with yards after the catch and breaking tackles. He's a lot of fun, kind of like a bull in a china shop. I've seen him get compared to like a Martavis Bryant. Here, let's type in Quentin Johnston. I might spell that wrong. Player profile. I love the player profiler tool here, playerprofile.com. He doesn't have all his workout metrics in here, so they don't really have a comp for him, but he's big. We know he's 6'3", 208, good arm length. He's got tremendous burst and speed. He's pretty high up there. So he's a pretty fun prospect, and if you haven't watched him, please go watch him. He's probably going to be the 1st or 2nd receiver taken in the NFL draft. And where he's being selected right now is that his landing spot could make or break him, because if you click on his name, you got Green Bay there, which I kind of like. I love the Chargers fit. I don't love the Ravens fit. The Giants could definitely use a wide receiver 1 if they get him at 25. That's a great deal. The Texans at number 12 is interesting. Again, the Ravens. So you're seeing some of the teams that he's being drafted to. I really like the Vikings landing spot too. I don't think he falls below 23. The Vikings do need a number 2 wide receiver. I like KJ Osborne there, but they do need a number 2, number 3 receiver. The earliest I could see him going is the Tennessee Titans. If he goes to the Titans, I don't love the landing spot, especially with Treylon Burks there. I think Treylon Burks is probably better than Quentin Johnston, but who knows? So a lot of things hinge upon Quentin Johnston's landing spot. I think he's a player that has some flaws in his game, but if he goes to a pretty good team that can throw the ball and get him the ball in space, we're looking at a fun prospect here. So he's my number 5. And then you get to the second running back on my list, Jahmyr Gibbs. And I think after the 1st round, I might be moving up Jahmyr Gibbs after the 1st round draft, that is, because his landing spot is super interesting. Now, with Quentin Johnston, he's a guy that I don't really love his range of outcomes as far as landing spot go. But if we click on Jahmyr Gibbs and you can see his ranking has been falling the last month, or like March took a hit. Like he was all the way up there to pick number 26 in terms of projections. And now he's at his lowest moment that he's been in the last calendar year, all the way down at 38. And you can see his range of outcomes. The Saints at 29, as high as the Patriots, which I don't see happening, but Buffalo, Kansas City, the Saints, the Eagles. I think looking at these, so look at these teams. You got Cincinnati, Buffalo, Philly, New Orleans, Kansas City. If he lands on one of these teams, he's probably going to move up in my rankings here. So his landing spot, and I would say this for almost every running back, for sure every running back, receiver, some of them guys are kind of, matchup proof, but I think with the running backs, huge importance on where they're going. If the Eagles don't want Bijan Robinson at 10 and they want Jahmyr Gibbs at 30, like I'm moving Jahmyr Gibbs probably up above Quentin Johnston and maybe over some of the quarterbacks. So I love Jahmyr Gibbs' game, phenomenal pass catching running back. I'm not concerned about his weight. He weighed in at 199. I think a lot of people were nervous about that with his combine, but I love his game. He's a lot of fun. He reminds me of Aaron Jones. A lot of people lazily compare him to an Alvin Kamara. I think he's more Aaron Jones than Alvin Kamara, but either way, I love Jahmyr Gibbs. And then I'm going to get to Anthony Richardson here with the quarterback from Florida. He's an interesting guy because nobody knows where he's going to go. As far as athletic ability, he's got the most athletic ability in the draft class. As far as accuracy, that's where people want to nitpick with him. And you can see though his his ADP ranking is as high as it's ever been. It's up to 4. People have him going as high as the Colts, maybe even the Titans at 3, and that's one of the more popular mocks that you've been seeing. Even the Texans at number 2. So Anthony Richardson's probably the hottest name in terms of moving up the boards in mock drafts. You can see the Raiders moving up for them, the Titans. If the Colts stay at 4, it's a lot of fun. I think he's going to be a guy that produces right away for fantasy. And if you had to put a comparison to Anthony Richardson's game, you're probably putting Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson in a blender. If you could put Lamar Jackson's athleticism into Jalen Hurts' body, that's probably what I would. That's probably where I would land with Anthony Richardson's comparison. A lot of fun, and he can just ignite us for fantasy football right away. So I like Richardson. After that, if you don't need a quarterback, I'm fine with taking some of these guys here. Zay Flowers, Josh Downs, my next 2 receivers off the board. Zay Flowers is probably one of the hottest receivers in the draft right now. Moving up the boards, he's up to 25 now, and if I look at his chart, you can see it's the highest he's been. I guess he did dip up to 25 a couple weeks ago, but he's had some ups and downs. But it's literally his stock is the highest it's ever been. He's now entered the rounds of the first round, and he's probably going as high as the Patriots. There's going to be some mocks here where you see the Ravens, the Bills, the Chargers. I think the Chargers are a really good fit as they look to maybe replace Keenan Allen in a year or 2. The Chiefs make a ton of sense. I don't think he gets past the Chiefs if he makes it there. The Saints, again, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Vikings, and then there's your Patriots, there's the Giants. Either way, you're looking at the landing spot for Zay Flowers. I think he's kind of matchup proof. What he does on the field doesn't really matter where he goes. He's going to be the number 1 look for a lot of teams. So I love Zay Flowers, universal pick. He's small, so is Josh Downs, but these guys are a ton of fun. Let's actually pull up the player profile tool for Zay Flowers. I'm just going to show you guys what we're looking at. His best comp is Jahan Dotson. He's got an amazing 40-yard dash. His burst and his speed score are not amazing, but his athleticism score, 94.2, not really high rankings. And I guess if you go through the wide receivers in this class, they're not going to be highly ranked athletically. But what he lacks in athleticism, if you just watch his tape, he's super savvy. He knows the routes. He's one of the best route runners in this draft class. I like the Jahan Dotson comp quite a bit, but he's small. He's 5'9", 182, and very similar to Josh Downs, who I think is also another bulletproof prospect where no matter where Josh Downs goes, he's going to be able to compete and be a legit wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. Now, interestingly enough, is his draft value has gone down. So I don't think Josh Downs and Zay Flowers are that far apart, where here we have a 46th ranking for Josh Downs and Zay Jones up at 25, or Zay Flowers up at 25. I don't think they should be that far apart. Look at some of the mocks here. It's weird because some of the mocks have Josh Downs entering the end of the first round at 25 to the Giants, 28 to the Bengals. If the Bengals draft a wide receiver in the first round, we're going to be super excited because that's Tyler Boyd's replacement and possibly T. Higgins' replacement. But we'll get into that. But I'm seeing some late first round potential in Josh Downs, which gets me excited. And I think you should be too. Let me look at this real quick. Let's see what his measurables are. His best comp is Wan'Dale Robinson. That's because of his size, 5'9", 170. He's tiny, but he's got a great burst, 40-yard dash. The speed score is there. Again, he's getting a knock on a lot of his grades is because he's small, but I think he kind of operates as a really good potential number 2 receiver in an offense. So I love those guys. And then we're going to get to my number 3 running back here. That's Zach Charbonnet, whatever you want to say, UCLA. And I've said this before. If you watch his game, and you squint a little bit, you see hints of Austin Eckler, which could be a lot of fun. So based on where he goes, I'll be honest, with the running backs, it almost doesn't even, I feel kind of silly doing these videos because it almost doesn't matter what I'm doing right now with these rankings, because once they get drafted, that's when the real ideas and thoughts are going to come out. But let's click on to Zach and see where he might be being drafted. They have him as high as the Buccaneers, which makes no sense. But the Bears, 65, the Bengals, round 2. I would love to see it. The Bengals draft Carbonet, he's going to be moving up. The Eagles, another team. The Seahawks, don't know if I like that. Potentially the Saints. I like the Cowboys fit. I love the Cardinals fit, but probably not happening round 3. Maybe with the Miami Dolphins and the Chargers. The Lions round 2 is interesting. But man, oh man, if he goes to the Eagles or the Bengals, like we're moving him up quite a bit. He's a fantastic pass catcher, kind of just a do-it-all guy. And if I go look at his player profile tool, let's take a peek at him. He's got a DeMarco Murray player profile tool, but he's more elusive, I think, and he's more of a better pass catcher. So his athleticism score ranks number 4 here in this year's class. He's a lot of fun, really good pass catcher. He did have 37 pass receptions last year. I really like him. I think he's a guy that probably moves up in my rankings after the draft. Let's keep it moving, though. We got to pick up the pace here. Jordan Addison, to me, I like Addison, but again, he's kind of small. I think his speed also concerned me. He's got a Deontay Johnson comparison. I think he's really fun to watch with his routes. He can do all the routes, but you can see he ranks dead last in athleticism, which to me, slight red flag. I'm going to take some of the other smaller receivers ahead of him. There's Will Levis out of Kentucky, who I think is the clear number 4. But again, based on his landing spot, and if he has potential to start right away, I might move him up. And then we get into round 2. I'm just going to rifle off these tight ends: Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid, and Darnell Washington. I love all of these tight ends, but again, it's landing spot. If the Bengals draft one of these guys, I'm going to be high on him. There's multiple other teams that need a tight end. Green Bay comes to mind. If one of these teams get a tight end, I'm going to be super on to them. But for now, I'm going to rank them as Mayer, Kincaid, Washington. Devin Achane, my next running back here. He's kind of the consensus number 4 running back in a lot of drafts. Let's pull up his profile here. And his tool is saying Chris Johnson. He's got an amazing 40-yard dash in speed score here, but a little bit undersized for a workhorse running back. 5'9", 188. I do like that he can catch passes. 36 passes last year. 200 yards, over 1,100 yards, a lot of touchdowns. He's a fun player, but again, he's just a little small. I don't know if he can be an every down player. Jalen Hyatt here, probably one of the more boom bust prospects in this class. I think he's a lot of fun, super athletic. Let's pull up Hyatt here. He only had the one big year last year with Hendon Hooker. His comp is Diami Brown. I think his 40-yard dash and his burst score are off the charts. He's a guy you want to get the ball to vertically. He can blow the top off a defense, no problem. But I think if you're expecting him to be an all-around wide receiver right away, that's not going to happen. He needs more polish. One of the receivers I do like right away is Marvin Mims. I think Marvin Mims, I probably should rank Mims over Hyatt. And then I might actually like Cedric Tillman over Jalen Hyatt as well. He's more of a well-polished receiver. Nathaniel Dell is a lot of fun as a small receiver as well. Let's take a look at him. My bad. Nathaniel Dell here. They comp him as Isaiah McKenzie, but again, he's small. This year, in this year's class, there's a lot of smaller receivers, and I think that's a trend you're going to be seeing in the NFL is more elusive, smaller, faster wide receivers with more defined roles here. But this is a guy put up back-to-back 1,300-yard years here at Houston, 12 touchdowns, 17 touchdowns last year. Highly productive guy. I like him a lot. And then I got a huge chunk of running backs because I don't know where to put these guys. Again, it's April 4th as I record this. I don't know where they're going to land. All this is going to change after the draft here. But Rashawn Johnson, Tyjae Spears, Tank Bigsby, Dwayne McBride, Sean Tucker, Zach Evans, Eric Gray. I like a lot of these guys. I think my favorite, though, is Rashawn Johnson. I think he's the most capable of being an all-around back. I also like Sean Tucker a lot, too. Tyjae Spears is more of a receiving back. Tank Bigsby more of a 1 and 2 down banger, kind of like a Damian Harris type, similar to Dwayne McBride a lot. And then Zach Evans is kind of a wild card, too. I think he can do it all. But I think for me to honestly give you guys a rankings on these guys is kind of silly right now. We don't know where they're going to be. We don't know who they're going to be behind. All these guys are probably day 2, day 3 selections. So we'll get into those guys after the draft. And then I'm just going to continue to rifle off. We got a couple tight ends here: Luke Musgrave, Sam Laporta. They're going to be day 2 tight ends. And then I got a group of receivers here: Tyler Scott, Rashee Rice, Keyshawn Butte, A.T. Perry. Day 3 guys, or probably round 3 guys, my bad. They're going to be round 3 selections. Their landing spot's going to be super important. Hendon Hooker is the guy that's got a ton of buzz right now. If you look at Hendon Hooker in his, let's look at his chart real quick. He's a guy that has been getting a lot of buzz. His ADP is all the way back up here to 50. A lot of teams like him. It could be smoke and mirrors, but if he gets drafted to the Vikings or something round two, we might be looking at him pretty highly in superflex leagues. Tucker Kraft, Tanner McKee, and then I have another. Basically, just the rest of my rankings are all kind of day three guys. Kendra Miller, who I like a lot for TCU. If he gets drafted higher day two, I'm going to be more interested in him. Tavian Thomas, Kenny McIntosh. I like Michael Wilson. He's a top 100 type draft pick. Jaden Reed from Michigan State as well. Jonathan Mingo. But again, as we get at this part of the draft, like it's kind of silly to me. Again, these rankings are all kind of we're all just shooting in the dark here. For me, you can watch as much tape on a player and have your own rankings before the draft and all that. But ultimately, what's going to decide our dynasty rankings is what the NFL draft tells us. Like, what do the actual NFL teams say about these players, where they're being drafted, who's getting dropped, who's moving up the boards, who's being shifted up in the rankings. So for me, I would focus. I feel more comfortable about kind of my top 25 or so. I think those guys are all really good players. But for now, that's where I'm at with my dynasty rankings. Again, I'm going to put a link in the description if you guys want to check it out. I got a bunch of other stuff on here too. You guys can check out my 2023 rookie class article where I update once a week and I kind of just show you guys, the rankings of where these fantasy players are going to be drafting. There's underdog ADP and drafters ADP if you play best ball. Check out the team depth charts and a couple other things on there for you guys. But that's going to do it for me. Thank you guys so much for your time. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening, morning, whatever you need. And yeah, we'll see you guys in a future video. Peace.